I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, are vaccine mandates an infringement on your rights?
I don't think the vaccine is an infringement on people's rights.
I don't think I should be forced to have it.
But at the same time, it's a free country. If you don't want to get it, that's on you.
I had no choice. It was either lose my job or get the vaccine.
It's not like the announcement was unexpected. The recent vaccine mandate put forth by the federal government will require Canadians traveling domestically by plane, train, or by boat to be fully vaccinated. Also, core federal civil servants were given an October 29th deadline to get both their shots, or they could face being suspended without pay. This has magnified the hot-button issue of mandatory vaccinations in this country, and we took to the streets to find out what you think about it. Our question: are vaccine mandates an infringement on your rights?
That's a complicated question. I think it needs to be mandated for people that are, in offices and in schools and so forth, where they're in close proximity, because I don't think the masking is really a perfect solution by any means.
Would mandating the polio shots, would mandating the smallpox, would that be infringing on somebody's right? History proves that they were worthwhile, and I believe that COVID falls into the same category.
Well, I think we have collective rights as individuals, part of a society. We have collective rights to take care of one another. And when your individual rights actually impact the greater good of society, the collective rights are more important.
Yeah, I think people should get the vaccine, but at the same time, it's a free country. If you don't want to get it, that's on you. But if you care about other people, I think it's good to get it as well.
No. I think that those that do not get vaccinations are infringing on my rights and the rights of others to live. Both my sister and myself rely heavily on our health departments in Alberta, and the idea, especially for her right now, of her being turned away from the hospital for life-saving treatments because somebody decided that getting a vaccination infringed on their rights. Oh, don't get me started.
In a way, yes, but I don't think it has to be if people would get the right information and the correct knowledge of the vaccine, instead of reading all the misinformation on the internet and such. I think the public health officials have had to force it a little, be more forceful about it because of too much misinformation.
Maybe, but I would like to be safe, so I don't care. If I have to have them done, I will. And if I need to travel and, I need them, I will do it.
I don't think the vaccine is an infringement on people's rights. I mean, I'd say that there's a lot of bigger problems out there in the world. We have bigger fish to fry, I guess, than, sitting down in a restaurant or going to the movies. But I don't know. If I could speak directly to some anti-vaxxers, I'd probably say that, yeah, I don't think it's the biggest issue in the world. I think that, if it's one prick in the arm and maybe we can solve some problems, then why not? It's worth whatever risks that some people think that there's there. So I would just recommend to go ahead and get the shot.
I think it's for the safety for the greater good. So I think the government, it depends. If everybody is forced to get one, I think that is an infringement to a certain extent. But if it's mandatory for only certain environments, then I don't think so.
Well said. And what about you?
And we're giving options. Mandatory, yes. Mandatory is a strong word, but you can choose in most cases to have the vaccine or prove that you have a negative test. So that's the balance that we've created in our society, and it is for the greater good. So the current laws, I think, are great.
So I definitely think that it's necessary, particularly for our economy and the health of our children. People are passing that off to their children who are not vaccinated going home. I have a sister in Alberta. It's a crisis mode there right now.
No, I don't believe so. We both work in restaurants, so we think it's a good safety measure to allow us to stay open, I guess, and have jobs.
Great answer. And how about you?
I don't think it's an infringement on rights. I know it's tough for people, but I do think it's necessary to protect like vulnerable populations and our economy stuff, and I think it's like the bigger picture of if certain people get COVID and end up really, really sick, it's like, I don't know why we would do something to not protect them kind of thing. So I do agree with that. I know it's tough, but on private property, I kind of understand, and there's options for people. Like they can still sit outside and do all that kind of stuff. So I do agree with it.
It depends where. If it's like a private business, government business, or sorry, government entity, sure it can be. If it's a private business, it should be up to them. If it depends. It always depends on the situation. Completely depends on the situation and where you're trying to enforce it.
Well, I'm a pharmacist, so I believe in vaccinations, so that's all I can say. So you got to try and save most of the people and be.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I don't think they should force me to have one to do what I want to do. I mean, not, you know, I agree with the vaccine. I mean, I had to have one to even be here, but I don't think I should be forced to have it.
I had to do it for my job. I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it to keep my job. But if there's a way that we can get rid of that, then it would obviously make a lot of things easier for everyone. So
there are certain people who are Roman Catholic who believe it's a matter of personal conscience, and that I should have the right to say no. And then there are other people, like a member in my family, who says basically, I don't want to have anything to do with you if you're not taking your shot, you know? So I think right now I'm just siding towards the jabs.
It is not a government responsibility, it is not your responsibility, it is not every citizen should take their responsibility. They should understand it is our responsibility, because of there is nothing important than our health. So definitely every citizen should take the responsibility and get vaccinated without any force.
The actual virus is real. Of course, as many people have suffered family losses, job losses because of it. But it's been abused, and it's been the first time that where a vaccine has actually had to be mandated for everyone federally, myself included, because I worked for the railway. So as a federally mandated employee, I had no choice. It was either lose my job or get the vaccine, which I still don't fully trust because there's just too much secrecy around it.
I think any kind of imposition where the government influences a person's ultimate decision regarding their own health is an infringement upon their own ability to make their own decisions.
Yeah, not saying that we don't agree with vaccines completely. Like all our kids are vaccinated and everything. Like it's we totally see the value in vaccines, but it is kind of troublesome. Like the mandates do bother us.
Vaccines are an amazing invention of Western civilization. Like we're so much better off because of vaccines.
For sure.
But that doesn't mean that people that are against them should be forced to take them if they're uncomfortable with it.
The debate on whether it's more beneficial to have a minority or majority government has been going on for quite some time. But we may be seeing minority governments in this country for some time to come. Many will tell you it's more inclusive to the parties, and Canada was governed by a minority since the beginning of this pandemic. But is this the best case scenario? Our question.
Is a minority government good for Canada?
Probably not. However, that's what we have, and we'll have to live with it. And I hope Trudeau can find a way to work with all the other parties and get what we all need done.
In a sense, yes, because if they're not a majority, it's a little harder for them to just put through decisions. So they have to have the other parties join forces and to make decisions, proper decisions. So yes, I think it is.
I don't see it as a big issue. As long as we get the support from both parties, both bigger parties such as the NDP and the Conservatives, as long as we get their support on what the Canadians feel are important subjects, values to the people.
I feel like this is essential because for every action there has to be equal and opposite reaction, and for decisions to be made or policies not to be too biased or too deviated towards one side, there always has to be another side that should be taken into consideration. That's what I feel personally, so that things don't go out of hand.
Honestly, I don't know anymore. I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but I think we're there for a few years, so we have to sit down and look at it.
Yeah, I think minority governments generally are good because it holds them a bit more accountable and permits the other parties to have a bit more of an influence. So I think it's a better solution for a broader consensus.
Well, in some ways I think it's a good idea because then the government just can't pass something on their own. They have to work hand in hand with other politicians from other parties, which will give us a better idea of what the broad of Canada is looking for what our government should be doing for us.
Honestly, I think debating is a good thing, right? It gives obviously different perspectives and points of view where if it was just one person, it would kind of be one-sided, right? Like there's always multiple sides to things, so I think it's good that they have to debate it and win a right to pass something instead of just being able to pass it their own will, you know what I mean?
Actually, it creates a much more democratic point of view and ability because there's accountability. No matter whose choice is right or wrong, it forces an accountability between a debate instead of one side, regardless of who it is, because there's no black or white. And even someone who specifically swears to one side will oftentimes find themselves on the other.
Because like the NDP party works with the Liberals, they're kind of, I feel like they kind of got a lot done what they wanted to get done anyway with that kind of help. So that's also why I think that the election seemed kind of pointless and a big waste of time and money because they kind of were getting a lot done that they were setting out to get done.
I think a majority government works better because every government is trying to do a lot of good things for the general public. If they have a power, they probably can achieve their goals. With the minority of government, you always have to fight a compromise. Sometimes it's hard to get the things done.
Yes, I do believe the minority government will serve Canada, the general population, the best of any majority government going. And I believe that the minority that we have right now is a good balance. I think it works to keep the government in power in check from just straight running away with things, and I think that both sides, all three sides, might be inclined to do so given the chance. So maybe a minority is the answer because it keeps them all. There's enough power out there to keep the ruling party in check.
I would like to bring back voters reform, which was Trudeau's sales pitch, and then it just got forgotten after he got elected. That would have fixed our country.
In a way, maybe, because that way everybody knows and they're on the same page to do whatever we need for Canadian, for Canada. I think if it's a majority, I mean, the government might just run with it, and we want to have a say on it, on the decisions they make. This way, they have to answer more to every Canadian what the government's plan to do.
Which job is currently held by Brenda Lucki? Governor General, RCMP Commissioner, PEI Premier?
I'll go PEI Premier. I have no clue.
I would probably say PEI Premier. That would be a guess.
Governor General? I have no idea. Yeah, Governor General.
Governor General?
RCMP Commissioner?
I think RCMP Commissioner.
You are absolutely correct.
Born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta, Brenda Lucki is the current Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Lucki joined the RCMP back in 1986 and has served in multiple regions of the country and also with the UN Protection Force in the former Yugoslavia. In 2018, Brenda Lucki raised the bar for women in law enforcement when she was named Canada's top Mountie, the first woman to ever occupy the job.
When Parliament eventually resumes, the Governor General will be outlining the federal government's priorities for the foreseeable future in the speech from the throne. Many Canadians will be listening very closely to this to see what's included and also what might be put on the back burner. So when things are finally up and running again here in Ottawa, what is it you want the Trudeau government to focus on? Our question.
What should be the new government's biggest priority?
I'd like to see like a timeline of when they think COVID restrictions will end. It seems like there's just keeps being pushed off and pushed off and pushed off, whereas other countries in Europe, like Norway just announced that they're ending all COVID restrictions. So I'd like to see, like, you know, get an idea of when they're going to be lifting restrictions.
But there's just no transparency, there's no clarity, and all of the issues that there needs to be clarity on are just clouded right over.
Taking care of our own. Definitely, I find the government, you know, they're quick to, you know, want to bring like the refugees from Afghanistan and stuff like this, which I don't get me wrong. They obviously need help, but look at our own society and how broken it is, how screwed up mental health care is, and you know, these people, war vets, even stuff like that, like they get looked over. You know what I mean? Like, we got enough problems to fix here. We don't need to look elsewhere to find more problems to bring in and try to take care of. You know, so I think that'd be one of the biggest things, is helping Canadians.
If we could have a strong sense of identity as people sharing the same air and water and children, and somehow defending ourselves if we have to, if it comes to that. I think we're a bit naive. We're politically naive. We're walking around in the world of angry giants with big issues.
Getting the economy right and doing whatever we need to do, tasks that are big and small and medium, get those tasks done so that the economy, which a lot of young people, new graduates are looking towards, they want to see opportunities. They don't want to finish college, university, and wind up pouring coffee or picking up a CERB check or whatever. So the economy, it's always been number one.
Allowing people not to be scared. Allowing people to know that vaccines are something that is common, but however, the scared people that are here going on is literally going to affect their immune system. So if they're scared and they're stressed out, their immune system's going to drop. So in that sense, even those who are not contracting the COVID-19 are still going to drop their immune system and go back to the hospital for other reasons.
Well, looking after the, I guess the reconciliation and health, basically, that's, I would say, the two priorities.
It should getting everybody vaccinated. COVID-19 should be their biggest priority, and testing, number one, and vaccination, number two, but they go hand in hand.
I really feel that the government should be concentrating on getting people back employed again. Maybe stopping these freebies that the people are getting because of the COVID, and getting people weaned off of that and then back into the working world. I think it's pretty important that people feel that they need to be giving back to the country instead of just receiving from the country all the time.
The biggest priority should definitely be the pandemic. You know, the sooner we can get back to normal and enjoy the restaurants and get the economy going, I think the better we'll all be.
I think it's still COVID-19 because it's not really erased. And of course, I think coming back with the economy. I think so, because things are getting so much, the cost is much higher and everything. So I think this has to be addressed.
Taking away the vaccine mandates.
Lowering
let
gas
people
prices.
work. And for sure, old people's homes, we never treated them right, and the hospitals have been overcrowded for the last 40 years.
Let's do something about it.
Yeah, do something about it. That's it for us.
Gas prices should come down too.
There we go.
I think our economy is important after this hit that we've taken from the pandemic, but so is our healthcare system, our social services. But I think the two probably go together.
I think our First Nations issues have to be addressed once and for all. This keeps going on and on. Nothing gets resolved. There's promises made and broken, as it has been for hundreds of years. But it's time It's time to settle this and to satisfy this population, the First Nations people, and to move on.
Deal with the pandemic and work. We need the economy to get better.
I would say denomination of the country, like they've separated all of us, kind of thing. You can see by the blue and the red on the voting, but yeah, I don't know. He's kind of lost all our faith of all the people in the West.
I think it should be about healthcare and about students.
Well, carry on with the COVID, get this under control is the best they can. Try to bring some unity to the country. There's a lot of division right now.
I don't really know how we can recover from the debt that's being incurred. I think we've got to start looking at that instead of just plain doling out money to people to get them through the hard times. I understand completely why they've gone that way, but I think we've got to find out how we're going to get out of that as well. And I think right now everything revolves around COVID.
It's an election promise from 2015 many people still haven't forgotten about, replacing the current first-past-the-post electoral system with proportional representation. Some will argue that proportional representation gives a more accurate political snapshot from voters across the country, while opponents of this will argue that it will allow fringe parties to get seats in the House of Commons. Also, some people will tell you that first-past-the-post does not work because the number of seats won is disproportionate to the amount of votes cast. So we took to the streets across the country to find out if this system works for you. Our question:
does Canada's electoral system work for you?
No. The first past the post makes no sense. I think we should have something other than that, some sort of weighted system where individual candidates and ridings have to get more than 50% to win. But I'm going to say our system of government in Canada works well for us overall. I mean, we've got a great country, it's safe, there's no violence compared to other places and so forth. So that's great. So I guess it is working from that sense. But I say no because it doesn't make sense that just because someone has 30% of the votes, they win everything in the area. So we have to either get them to work towards 51% or some sort of proportional representation, something else.
When we look at how many votes the Conservatives won, for example, and them not being in power, it just raises further questions if it worked or not. So for me it didn't, but maybe for others it did.
Well, right now, from what I understand, there are a disproportionate number of seats. I understand Quebec have more seats, and watching the American system and the Canadian system, and we're starting to use terms like the popular vote. I wish that it would be explained to everybody how that actually works and how the numbers of seats work and what you have to do across Canada to get proper representation. I think that's something that's not really looked into enough and people don't understand it. And they don't teach you that in school, which they should.
I think there needs to be some reform in there because Mr. Trudeau won the last election, I think, with the lowest level of turnout ever in a Canadian election, and I think it's something, well over 2/3 of voters did not vote for Liberals, and here he is sitting as Prime Minister. A lot of people scratch their heads around the world. There's other smarter countries, I think, that we can emulate. So change needs to happen, and you know, people who are benefiting now, of course, they don't want to change. They love the status quo. Why would you, if you're winning and you're benefiting, why would you want to change that?
There's so much population in the East, the West doesn't really get a vote.
Like we're from the West.
We're from the West. So we know who's won by the time they start adding us up.
Well, I'm not sure, because if the percentage is higher for a certain party and they are not representing us, is it good or bad? I don't know. When I see others, it doesn't seem better. So I think it's okay for us.
Okay, I prefer actual votes being tabulated to represent the actual belief or voting process of the whole of the system, in other words. So in other words, each vote tabulates to an actual representation to who gets elected as an MP, and furthermore, the leader of that party gets elected as leader of that party.
Seeing as though, I guess as I understand, the Conservative government got more votes, but then they didn't
right?
Yeah.
They got more votes, but then they still are not in power. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and
I know there's a whole bunch of I'm not 100% sure how everything works, but that just seems weird that, when one party gets more votes, they still don't win.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have like the representative system that we have in Canada, where it's like it's not based on popular vote. Like there's merit to that because you want to have people on the East Coast where there's less population to have a say in the way that things are run.
Right.
But it seems like you go west of Ontario and it's pretty well blue the whole way through. So it just seems like I don't know. There's not enough. Like it seems like the views of say Saskatchewans and Albertans are underrepresented.
Well, I would say I have a lot of concerns about the way our political system works. In terms of, I don't feel that we've elected a party or a person who necessarily reflects the views and the voters' will across Canada. For example, BC and Alberta voters, our votes don't really count because how many seats there are in Ontario and the fact that the vote was basically decided before any of our votes were even counted.
No, I think we should go to that, is it representation? That I believe would give the true picture of what the population wants in Canada. I think it would be far more effective, far more efficient.
Better than any other that I can think of right now. Living in Western Canada, I do see that there are changes that have to be made. We're not represented. And that sucks. I don't know enough about politics or the system to say we should be doing this instead. I don't know how to do that, but I know that something needs to be done so that Western Canada is represented by our federal government.
The East has the power, and the West kind of just sort of goes along with it. So I'd like to see more representation in the West. Have a better, say for our own future in the country and that.
No system is perfect. Every system has its drawbacks. For instance, if we had some kind of representational system right now, the People's Party of Canada would have some seats, and that would make me very unhappy. I think that kind of system allows the fringe parties to have more of a voice. And I know this will upset some people, but I think we don't really need that. I'm a real supporter of, for one reason, not that I necessarily think the fringe parties are totally wrong, but they have a harder time to cooperate with others than some of the other parties do. So I'm looking for a parliament that is more about cooperation than conflict. And I think the fringe parties tend to be not oriented that way. So I'm happy with the system as it is, even though it's not perfect.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.